Okay, you guys. So in this tutorial, what I'm going to do is kind of go through the steps of how to take this massing that we've created and actually turn it into a building, something with walls, and we're going to cover windows and doors as well in this tutorial. So I have my incomplete open cubes and I have my massing, and I say, I'm happy with it. And I want to go ahead and move on to the next step. So the typical process or the typical process when designing a building, when you're starting off kind of in this conceptual form, is that once you've gotten to a point with the massing that you're happy with, we actually don't develop the massing from here on out. We pretty much kind of start over, start from scratch in a way, but we have something to model and something to reference, which is this massing that we've already created. So what I'm going to do next is actually not go in and try to edit what I've created. What I'm going to do is kind of copy what I've worked on over here and actually start modeling it in a proper way. So what I want to do is I want to go ahead and take a look and start modeling my first floor. The way I'm going to do that is actually orient the camera down below, and I'm using the line tool. I'm actually just going to go from one corner to the other, and I'm going to trace the perimeter of my massing. Now, it's important to make sure that you're going to the corner of the actual massing. Notice how I'm going to the middle point here between these two between these two pieces, these 6x6 pieces. That's because this one over here belongs to the other incomplete cube, right? So I'm going to go ahead and go right there. Same thing right here. Go to this edge, go to this edge. Now you want to make sure that you're going and you're actually clicking on every single edge. Okay, so that means zooming in, making sure that you're actually hitting the endpoint. Now the odd thing is that when we get started, we sometimes forget where we started. Okay, and so if I go ahead and click here, notice that when I finish the click, that the line tool stopped drawing. It stopped giving me a line segment. So for example, if I was to draw another line, notice how the line tool will automatically continue to draw and want to draw a line, right? So as soon as I click and I move the cursor, it automatically wants to continue. There's that line that's already attached to it. However, notice what happens once I actually complete the segment and actually click at the beginning where we started. Oops. Of course, it does that, and it probably did that because, yeah, we did some really weird things going on. Here, let me start over. So using the line tool, as I'm drawing, right, it always wants to continue to give me a line. But once I finish, well, it should have stopped. Of course, in this example, it doesn't. If it stops, my point is that if it stops, then it means that you've completed the surface. Okay. Not sure why. Oh, yeah, because I went down. Once you go three-dimensionally down, then that whole line tool piece doesn't work. So what I'm doing here is I'll go ahead. I went around and I drew my surface. Okay. Now it's hard to see that because I already have these other objects in the way. So I can, once I've gone around and drawn my surface, I could go ahead and just select one of the surfaces, right click and hide it. Okay. Once I hide that surface, or once I hide that massing, then I'll be able to actually select this surface. Okay. So now I'll go ahead and triple click just to make sure I get all of the elements, the lines and the surfaces. I'm going to use my move tool. And I'm going to move this out kind of in this direction, so along the green axis. And I'm going to go 100 feet. Okay. Notice how, if you remember in the other tutorials, we went about 100 feet away from our original incomplete cubes, and now I'm going 100 feet away from here. Having a set kind of amount that you're moving from one object to the next makes it a bit easier, so that if you ever have to reference something in the past or reference kind of this model, we know that all we have to do is just move objects exactly 100 feet. Or if I have to bring something over here back to this side, then I know all I have to do is move it 100 feet, right? So it makes that part kind of easy. Now, once I hide something, if I ever want to unhide it, I can just go up to the edit, unhide, and we have the option to unhide last or unhide all. Right now, we've only hidden one thing, so I'll just hit unhide all, last, sorry. So now I have an actual shape. I'm going to use the push pull, and I'm going to pull this up 6 inches. Okay, and this is going to act as my floor. Now, what's the rule when we go up? We triple click, 1, 2, 3, right click, make group. Okay, so now we have a floor. And now what we're going to do is use the line tool again, and I'm just going to go all the way around one more time to create a new surface. And this is kind of in line with the steps that we did when we did the first assignment, the table assignment. Okay. All right. So let me try to make that point again. Notice that with the line tool, the line will automatically continue to try to create a line. However, once I hit the end point where I've started, once I kind of complete the loop, it's going to stop, right? Notice how the line tool has stopped. Notice how the line no longer is attached to my pencil. That's because SketchUp says, okay, you've completed a surface. You've completed the actual loop to create the surface. And for that reason, there's no need to continue with the line. So that's typically how you know if you've completed the loop. Okay. Now that I have my surface, I'm going to use my offset tool, letter F, and I'm going to click on the inside. And I'm going to offset inward 6 inches. So I'm just going to type in 6, enter. I'll go ahead and click once on the inside here because I no longer need this surface. However, make sure you did not delete the floor. Okay, I deleted, let me undo. I'm simply selecting the surface here, which I'm deleting, but not the floor. Okay, if your floor was got deleted, then you did something wrong. Chances are that you never actually grouped, that you may have forgotten to group the actual floor. Okay, so make sure your floor is grouped and then go in, offset, and then delete the surface in the middle. All right, so from here, I'm going to want to push pull this offset set of lines up, and that's going to act as my walls. The question is, how high up do we go? Okay, if we try to match it to this height, which is 11 feet 6 inches, then it means that we're not actually going to have space to account for the ceiling or the roof of this project. So I'm going to guess that the roof is 6 inches. And so the roof is going to sit on top of my walls. So if the top of the roof here is 11.6, that means that my walls should really go up 11 feet. So I'm going to go select my walls so that they go up 11 feet. Enter. And then again, once we go up, we triple click and make group. Okay. So now we have floors and we have walls. So now I'm going to create the ceiling, and I'll create the ceiling the same exact way. Okay. going to use the line tool. Again, notice how the line is attached to the pencil after every single click. Right after I click on every single corner. If that's not happening to you, then that means that you have some overlapping geometry, some overlapping lines. Okay. Now notice what happens right now when I finish the loop. The line is no longer attached to the pencil. Okay. Going back to what I was saying is that if the pencil tool if the line is no longer attached to the pencil, but you never got a surface, it means that you've probably have made a mistake at some point where you started drawing the lines and then for whatever reason escaped and started to kind of try to start over, but then you began to overlap some lines, things like that. The simple fix is selecting your walls, hiding your walls, and then what you're left with is going to be the actual line work that you created. And from this point, you'll be able to see, oh, okay, I've created this line, this line, this line. So that means I need to start on this corner, right? Then you could go back to edit, unhide last, bring your walls back, and then continue on. So here's my ceiling. I'm going to go ahead and push pull this up 6 inches. And then I'll triple click 1, 2, 3, right click, make group. Okay. So now we have floor, walls, ceiling. Now for my second floor, I could do the same thing where I can use the line tool and I can go across all the way around, right, from the base. And maybe that's simple. The other thing you can do is, I mean, what I'll do in this example, I'm going to do all that. Is kind of work the other way around, right? Work from the top down as opposed from the bottom up. Okay, so I'll kind of show you guys both approaches, and then this way you kind of have this way you kind of see how it's done in both ways, and then you'll be able to make a decision of which way you want to go about it. So it's the same thing. I'm going to draw a surface, but this time at the top of my massing. Okay. Now I'm doing it at the top here because it kind of makes it a bit easier to see the endpoints there. Right. And now I see the surface, but notice that I can't select it. Again, that's because it's selecting the massings underneath. So all I have to do is select one of the massings, right click and hide it. And then I can go ahead and select the surface. Okay. I'm going to double click or triple click that surface, and then I'll use the move tool, hit the left arrow key to make sure that I'm locked in place. Okay. Now the question becomes, well, how far do I move it back? Well, since we moved everything exactly 100 feet, I'm just going to type in 100 feet, and it's actually going to move it in place, right? That's exactly where it's going to want to fall. Now this is the top of my space here. Let me go ahead and edit, unhide last. This is the top of my space here. So that means that this is actually the top of my roof. So I'll use a push pull and I'm going to go down 6 inches and then triple click, make group. Okay. Now to create the walls, again, it's the same process, just going backwards. So I'm going to use the line tool. I'm going to go all the way around my building. Now we have the surface, and then I'll use the offset tool, the letter F. I'm going to offset 6 inches, select the center here and delete it. Now I'll go ahead and use the push pull, and I'm going to go down. Now, I'm not sure if it should be 11 feet, 11.6, 12 feet. What I do know, though, is that these walls are going to come down and land right on top of these surfaces. So if I'm looking down here, that means that's 11.6. I'm just going to go ahead and click on any of these edges or the corners. And then that's going to actually place these walls and have them come all the way down here. So now go ahead and triple click, make group. Okay. So now, if we're taking a look at this, this is my second floor, this is my first floor. The roof of my first floor is actually acting as the floor to this space inside here. So now what I'm missing is essentially the space is the floor in this area. Now I could do one of two things, and I want to say both options have their pros and the cons, positives and negatives. I guess what I'll do, what we'll do in this for this assignment is we'll go ahead and edit the top roof, right? Or the roof of the first floor. This way you get you gain some practice with editing some of the geometry that's already there. The other alternative, what you could have done or what you can do, is just do the same thing where you draw a line all the way around. You end up getting a surface just in this area. And then you pull this down 6 inches, right? Then there you have the same thing. However, the one difference is that this object is not part of this object, right? The roof and the seal and the floor of the second floor are two separate objects. So it's not that that's necessarily a bad thing, it just means that it's something you need to be aware of when you're modeling. Oops. Okay. So what I want to do is I want to edit this top roof here. So I'm going to double click into the roof. I'll just go ahead and grab this surface here and pull this all the way across to right there. There you go. Right. Now I do need to bring this surface out over here. Okay. However, I don't need all of the additional stuff. I just want it to be around my floor. So what I'll do is I'll use the line tool, and I'm going to divide up that surface there and use the line tool, and do the same thing, divide that surface up there. Now, when I click here, the surface is the only portion of the surface that is selected is the portion in between these two lines. I could have clicked over here as well, and it's kind of the same thing, okay? Remember, right now I'm still inside the edit group. I'm still inside the group of the ceiling. So I'll use my push-pull, and I'm going to pull this out right there. And there we go. I'll hit the escape key to get out of the group. And now we have one single object that is both the ceiling of the first floor as well as kind of the flooring for the second floor, which is typically how it's actually built. All right. So there we have it. Here's our massing. Okay. Now, soon at some point, we're going to go ahead and bring these additional pieces or these additional, the incomplete cubes. We'll go ahead and bring these over, but we don't have to do that just yet, right? But it is kind of sometimes helpful just to kind of get a sense of the overall shape of the project, okay? But I'll go ahead and delete these guys for now. Okay, so we have our massing, we have walls, and we have these planes that are acting as both ceiling and floor. From here on out, I'm actually I prefer to hide the ceilings and the floors so that it gives me the ability to look inside the building. So I'll go ahead and select this object, select that object, right click and hide. Okay. So now both of those are hidden, and now I'm actually able to look inside the building, and I can navigate a bit easier here. Okay. All right, so at this point now, what I want to do is begin to have an idea of how I want this spaces or the spaces on the inside to begin to work, right? We know we need a kitchen. We know we need a living room space, a dining room space, a bedroom space, a bathroom, things like that, okay? So now what I'll do is I'll kind of look around here and say, okay, well, maybe I could put a kitchen. This kind of area here can be a kitchen. This could be the living room. And maybe I could, the entry can be somewhere over here. And then I could add a staircase um, going from this corner, going up into this area here. And up here will be the bedroom, and it'll be a big bedroom. It'll be a spacious bathroom and maybe a walk-in closet, something like that, right? It's very, at this point, it's very kind of early on to get a sense of where things are going to be placed. But what is critical, or what is important, is going to be two things: your interior walls and your stairs. Okay. So the first thing is, let's say I want to figure out my interior walls. Maybe I don't want to add any interior walls in my ground floor. I think I'm fine with that. But coming into the second floor, right? I'm going to say this is almost going to all be kind of a living space, right? So I need to kind of figure out where and how this is going to work out. My idea is that the stairs are probably going to come in. They might come in somewhere around here. And when you're kind of planning it out, it might even help if you want to bring your floors back. So I might go into edit, unhide last, and I'll go ahead and just hide the ceiling for this one. Okay, so I right click and hide. So here, maybe what I'll do is I'll create a bathroom. So we come up here. I'll probably want a sliding door somewhere here. This way I can maximize the use of this roof. And this could be an outdoor roof, and might as well just do the same thing over here. So I'd probably put a sliding door window somewhere here, which means I'll probably want to add like the bed inside here. And I might want to add maybe an office space somewhere or a desk. Maybe I'll do that somewhere inside here. Actually, we have this space, so maybe I'll do that somewhere over here. And then I'll put my bathroom right over here in this corner. So let's say I want to add a wall right here. Okay. Let's say we'll put a wall inside here, and that wall is going to act as the partition between this space and the bathroom. So to add interior walls, it's quite simple. We're going to use a tape measure tool, and I'm going to pull a guide as far out as I want. So I'm going to go out, let's go out 6 feet. Yeah, we'll go out 6 feet. Okay. And then the thickness of my walls, I'm going to go ahead and leave them as 6 inches. Typically, interior walls are kind of closer to about 4 inches, but you could also get them. They're also they vary in width, and then if we're talking about insulation and things like that, they could get pretty thick pretty quickly. So we're just going to keep everything the same. Since our exterior walls are 6 inches, the interior walls will also be 6 inches. So I'll hit enter. And now I could use the rectangle tool and actually just create a rectangle right here, use the push pull, and bring this up to there. Okay. And now I'll go ahead, triple click, right click, make group. If I wanted to add, say, a half wall that is aligned to this edge here, what I can do is use a tape measure. And it's the same thing. I'm going to strike a guide along that edge. And if you remember how to do that, all we have to do is double click on the edge, not the corner. Okay. And then from there, I'll go in another 6 inches this way. And maybe I just want it to be a small 2-foot partition wall. From here, it's the same thing, same concept. Use the rectangle tool, use the push pull, and bring this up just like that. And I'll triple click, right click, make group. Okay. Now, what you will see is this kind of partition line between this object and this object. And right now in this moment, we're fine with that. Okay. Later on in the semester, we'll go ahead and go over how to delete or hide these lines so that they actually are kind of a merged object. But for right now, let's go ahead and just leave the walls the way that they are. And if there's a line running down in between them that shows that they're kind of 2 separate objects, that's fine. Just leave them. Okay. So that's how we that is how we create these interior walls. Now, the other thing that I mentioned, let me delete my guides. The other thing that I mentioned is being able to plan out the stairs. Okay. I believe in the next tutorial, we may be going over stairs in detail. Okay. But doing the math, we are going to need a matter of 18 feet, 6 inches of actual stair space. Okay. So let me explain what I mean by that. Let me go ahead and hide this floor. So we're going to, so we're going to need 18 feet, 6 inches of actual step spaces, right? So we're going to need a matter of a length, or the amount of steps that we're going to need, which I believe is going to be 20 steps. The amount of steps that we're going to need is going to take up 18 feet, 6 inches of linear footage. Okay. Now you can place your staircase wherever you want, but there is a general rule, and that general rule is that one staircases are about a minimum of 3 feet wide. So everything we're going to be doing is in regards to stairs is that it's going to be a 3-foot wide staircase. Obviously, I don't have, there's only a few walls that actually run 18 feet, 6 inches. Okay. But none of them actually run in such a way that it actually allows me to enter this space, right? Over here, this wall, for example, I think it's 23 feet. I have enough space to have a straight run staircase that goes straight along that wall. But when I go up to the second floor, I'm going out to nothing. So that means that what I want to do is be able to go in. So when I go up, I'm actually going into a space. Okay. However, that means that I'm going to have to do a turn. Right. I'm going to have to go up because I don't have 18 feet space, 18 feet from this corner over here to this side. It's only 11 feet. So what I want to do right now is just kind of do a general massing of where I envision the staircase to be. Okay. Again, in the future, we are going to go over in detail of how to create the stairs. Right now, we just want the massings. The one thing that you have to consider, though, is your corners. Okay. Because at every corner, whenever you turn a staircase, so if I'm going up one way and then I have to turn and continue going up, at that corner, you're always going to need a landing. Okay, you're always going to need a place to land on, turn, and then continue going up. Okay, those landings are 3 feet wide. So they're going to be 3 feet by 3 feet. So the way we're going to do this, if I know I need 18 feet, 6 inches, I'm going to want to say, all right, I'm going to go from this wall down. Obviously, I don't have 18 feet 6 inches here, so I'm going to have to go down, and then I'm going to have to turn and then continue going down this way. So to kind of map that out, which is important here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a rectangle that's 3 feet by 3 feet wide, 3 feet, comma, 3 feet, enter. Okay. And this is going to represent my landing. So I'll go ahead and double click this and move that here. Okay. So then that means that my stair is going to go here, come down. I have my landing, and then it's going to continue going this way. Now, what is my distance from this point to this point? That's 9 feet. Okay. So that means I have 9 feet of actual stair, of actual steps, space that I can use. However, I need 18.6. So if I have 9 feet here this way, then that means that I'm going to need another 9 feet 6 inches this way. Okay. Now I said my staircases are 3 feet wide, so I'll go out 3 feet this way. I'm going to go out 3 feet this way. Okay. And I'm going to use a rectangle and just place a rectangle here and a rectangle there. And that's it. This is going to signify that this is where I'm going to place my staircase. Okay. I'm going to go up, land, turn, and then continue going up. And when I get to the top, I'm going to be at this point. Okay. Now, if for whatever reason, let me hide this for a moment. If for whatever reason you have multiple turns, let's say we still don't have the means to do 18.6 on this corner and we need to add more steps. All you have to do is bring in this 3 foot by 3 foot square, which is your landing, and add it to all of the corners that your stair would go, right? So I would use the move tool. I could copy this and place it this way. And so that would mean that I'm going up these steps, hitting the landing, going up these steps, hitting the landing, and then going this way, right? Or going to whatever direction you want it to go in. Right? And so from here, maybe it's 6 feet. I'd use the rectangle tool. And again, this is really just as a placeholder for the actual staircase, right? And so now this would show that, okay, I'm going up, landing, up, landing, up. Okay. And again, the landings are placed at all of the corners. Whenever you're going to go up and turn, go down and turn, you're going to need a landing in that space. Okay. I'm going to delete this because I don't plan on using it for my staircase. I have enough space here. Okay. So again, the goal is to have 18 feet 6 inches of usable kind of stair space. The landing does not count. So that means I have 9 feet here and I have 9 feet 6 here. Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and delete my guides. So once you've, let's bring everything back. Let's go up to edit, unhide all. So now we brought everything back. I'm gonna go ahead and hide this. Oops. Hide the ceiling, select this, hide this. Why isn't my hide working? Hide this ceiling, okay? And so now we get a better view of what's happening on the inside of the house. So once you have the walls, the interior walls in place, and once you have an idea of where your staircase is going to be, we can go ahead and come back and say, okay, I still feel good about this being kind of a living room. Maybe this becomes a dining room and this becomes the kitchen space, okay? So you want to kind of map everything out. Once you've done that, then we can go ahead and begin to talk about window placement and door placement, okay? So I want to start by just kind of covering the basics of how to create an opening inside these walls. So I'm going to start off by creating my front door. By looking at this, if I have my staircase going up here, I think I said this is going to be a living room. Maybe I have a dining space over here and then a kitchen over here. So by the looks of it, I think I'm going to want my entry door to be right on this wall. So what I'm going to do is edit this wall because essentially I want to punch a hole through the wall. So I'll go ahead and double click inside this wall. Now I'm in the edit group of this wall. I'll use the tape measure. I'm going to go maybe 6 inches away from this corner. You don't want to put a door. You typically don't want to put a door right up against a wall. You're going to need a door jamb. You need the trim and the molding around the door, things like that. So 6 inches is a good enough space when it's perpendicular to a wall. So I'll go 6 inches out this way. And essentially what we're going to do is just kind of create a bunch of guides around or along the surface. And we're going to create the door that way, or the shape of the door. And then we'll come back and we'll use the line or rectangle tool to actually do the line work. But we're going to start off with the tape measure and the guides. So I'm going to go 3 feet this direction. And then I'm going to go up 7 feet. Okay. The reason why I'm going up 7 feet is because we have such tall ceilings and these spaces are actually really high. The actual general kind of basic standard door height is 6 feet 8 in residential projects, 7 feet in commercial projects. So now what I'll do, now that I kind of have the opening that I want created or kind of scaffold out with these guides, I'll go ahead and use the rectangle tool and create a rectangle along the surface. There we go. And now we have 2 surfaces. Now this doesn't mean that any of it is actually open. It just means that this surface is divided into 2. I'm going to take this surface here and I'm actually going to push pull it. Now you could always push pull a surface out or in. Okay. Now, if you push a surface inward, you have to be careful because sometimes it'll actually go in kind of a negative space over here and it'll create geometry that goes into your space. Okay. So what you want to do, if you know the actual depth of the wall, then it means that then what we want to do is move the surface into that wall and then just enter the thickness of the wall. So we'll go 6 inches, enter, and now I've created the opening. The other way is we could use the push pull. And instead of going in and typing in 6 inches, what I can do is just move my cursor up here to the back side of that wall, anywhere on the back side of the wall, and it's going to reference that distance. And now you can actually, now it'll also create an opening. Okay. So now we have our opening for the door. It's not the actual door itself. But while I'm here, I'm going to go ahead and create an opening for a window. And if this is my big entry door, or if this is my entry door, I think I want kind of a big picture window right inside here. So using the tape measure, I'm going to go out another 6 inches. Remember, I'm still inside the group of the walls. That's the reason why I'm able to edit these walls. So I'll use a tape measure, and then I'm going to go out, I don't know, let's go out 7 feet. 7 feet, enter. And maybe the height is something rather low, so we'll go 30 inches. Okay. And now I have kind of the idea or the boxing of my window. So I'll use the rectangle tool. I'll go from one corner to the next. And there we have it. Okay. Now we have our surface that's divided up. I'll use the push pull and I'm going to pull this back. I'm not going to specify a dimension, but I can click. What I do want to do is kind of show you what I meant earlier. You see, we could go into the negative space. We could go into the actual wall. This is what it would look like. But then we end up with this kind of big block on the inside. So to avoid that, when we use the push pull, we'll go ahead and push pull and select the back edge of the surface that we're going to pull into, or you could enter the dimension of the wall. So I'm going to click right there, and there we have it. Let's go ahead and go edit, delete guides. And I'm going to now get outside of the group, go outside of the group, because I now want to build the window and the door, and I want that to be its own separate object, not necessarily in the same exact group as the walls, because if I do that, then the windows are going to be attached to the actual walls, which obviously we're trying to avoid, right? So we want them to be two separate objects. So that's why I exited the group for the walls. And now I'll go ahead and start building the windows, building the doors, and make them their own group. Okay. So let's focus on the window itself, because that's a little bit more of the complicated one. What we're going to do is add a 2-inch mullion or kind of trim piece around the glass, and then we'll add the glass. So it's going to actually be two objects. The glass is one object. The molding or the trim is the second object, but it's going to be the one that we start off with. So I'll use the rectangle tool. I'm going to draw a surface over the window or over the opening at this point. Now I have a surface. Oops, that didn't go all the way down. Let me move this. Actually, yeah, let's move this down into the correct location. There we go. You could also just delete it and start over. So I'm going to start off by doing the molding. And so I'll use the offset tool. And I'm going to offset this 2 inches. Okay. Then I'll take the inside here and delete it. And I'm going to be left with just kind of this rectangle here, space, which I could push pull this 2 inches. So it's 2 inches in 2 inches wide and then 2 inches deep. Okay. And now once we go out, once we go into kind of 3 dimensions, we triple click, right click, make group. Okay. Oops. All right, now for the glass, we'll come back, use the rectangle tool. This time we're going to go on the inside here of the window, inside to inside. Now we have a surface. I'll go ahead and push pull this out, let's say 1/2 inch. Triple click, 1, 2, 3, right click, make group. Okay. So now we have the molding, the mullion, and then the glass itself. Now, this isn't actually how a window works or how it's placed. The glass should sit in the middle of the molding, and then the molding and the glass, it should be kind of inset from the wall. So we're gonna go ahead and start to move this glass into the actual molding. So to do that, I'll select the glass, use the move tool, and then grab it at the center of my glass. So I grab it right there. Okay. Now I'll typically kind of move the cursor out, either inward or outward, so that I can get a sense of the axes that I'm on. So right now, if I pull this out, I see the green line. So that means I'm going to hit the left arrow key so that I'm locked in place. Well, what happened here? I zoomed too far up. So now that I'm grabbed the glass at the center, I can go ahead and move the cursor in and then find the center of the molding, right? I click right there, and now this glass is centered along the molding. Let me go ahead and select the glass, select the molding, right click, and make group. Okay, so now the glass itself or the window is a group in itself. However, the the window is still kind of sticking outside of the building. We have to push it in. Now we know the window is 2 inches thick because that's how we modeled it. And then what I'll do is I'll move this in an extra inch, stick with an inch. So that means I'm going to move this window in a total of 3 inches. So I use the move tool, grab it from this corner, hit the left arrow key so that it makes sure it's locked along the green axis. I'll go ahead and move it in this direction, and then I'll type in 3, enter, right? And that means it's going to move it 3 inches. And there we have it. Sorry, I keep getting into the other building or the other space. But there we have our window with a frame and the glass on the inside. Let's go ahead and do that one more time. This time with the door. Okay, it's going to be the same exact concept. The width and the dimensions might be a little bit different, but the idea is still the same. We first punch out the hole, then we go in and we create a surface to create to create kind of the border, the mold, the mullions or the moldings, and then we do a second object for the glass. So I'm going to start off over here with the rectangle tool. And same thing, use the offset tool. Actually, I'll use the tape measure because I don't want it to be offset all the same or the same throughout the entire door. I'm going to go 4 inches here. From the top, I'll go another 4 inches. From the side, I'll go another 4 inches. And then from the bottom, I'm going to go 8 inches. Okay. And now I could use the rectangle tool or I could use the line tool. I'll go from one corner to the next. And now I could select this and delete it. Okay. Now that I've deleted it, I could use the push pull and pull this out 2 inches. Triple click, 1, 2, 3, right click, make group. All right. Now the door frame is done. What we need is the glass. So I'll use the rectangle tool, create a rectangle on the inside here. Select the surface, push pull this out 1/2 inch, triple click, 1, 2, 3, right click, make group. Okay. All right. So again, we want this glass to be centered into the middle of the frame here. The way we do that, we'll use the move tool. We grab the glass at the center, okay, on the edge here. We pull out so that we know which axes we're on. Sometimes if I'm on the other side of the building, I'll be on the red axis. This side, I'm on the green axis. So that's why I kind of pull it out a little bit first so that I can see which arrow to push. So I'll hit the left arrow key. Now, again, once you hit the arrow keys, that cursor is now locked in place, right? It's only going to go in that one direction. So if it's only going to go in that one direction, then it means I could actually move my cursor. I could actually move my cursors anywhere else, and it's going to continue to just move in that one direction. So now what I want to do is, sorry, let's start this over. I'll grab it from the middle, hit the left arrow key, and then place it right at the center here, right? And now it's referencing that center point. Select the glass, select the door frame, right click, make group. And then I'll go ahead and use the move tool and go in. Instead of 2 inches, let's go 3 inches. There we go. Edit, delete guides, okay? And there you have it. That's how we kind of add doors, how we add windows. Again, the process is you actually have to go into the wall group so that you can create the openings. Once you've created the openings, you leave the edit group and then you build new objects, the door, the window, that fit inside that opening. Okay. So what you should do for this week is add all of the interior walls and add all of the doors and windows that you want to add into in the actual space, whether it's interior or exterior. Okay, so if you want to add a sliding door, or if you want to add any type of door or kind of, yeah, any door or window, then you can go ahead and place that wherever you want, right? But you have a lot of freedom here to design this however you want it to. I'm also going to give you guys a little bit of leeway, a little bit of freedom. If you needed to move a wall and make the space a little bit bigger, then you can go ahead and do that as long as we're kind of pushing outward instead and not inward. Okay. So in other words, if this space needed to get bigger, we could always select the surface, pull this out, let's say 3 feet, and then do the same with this wall here. It's on the inside, push this wall 3 feet, and there we have it, right? So you can do that as well. All right. So that's it. That's it for this lecture. If you guys have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out. Okay. If not, good luck, and we'll move on to the next lecture.